Okay, today we're going to talk about the full lotus, and we're going to talk about it in a completely new and different way. The completely new and different way is by combining it with inner guidance practice, or as I like to call it, the Mahamudra. It's an extraordinary form of inner guided movement meditation. We were in Old Manali, an extraordinarily beautiful place up in northern India, 6,500, 7,000 feet elevation with incredible mountains and incredible forests and streams. It's a place that you can actually breathe. I've been spending 2-3 months a year in Old Manali, doing various forms of practices, meditations, various forms of yogic meditations, various forms of tantric meditations, various forms of Western meditation, particularly with Western, the deep emotional release or the deep emotional clearing as a form of meditation. We're going to talk about going into full lotus, staying in full lotus, coming out of full lotus, all with inner guidance, all with using the Mahamudra, which is allowing yourself to be used by your inner guidance energies. Now, using inner guidance, I go into full lotus at least once a day, twice a day, maybe more, for anywhere between 10-15 minutes and 30 to 45 minutes. Using inner guidance, it's not, you don't do Lotus. You're not concerned about body conditioning. You're not concerned about the normal asana approach. You're not concerned about any of that. The Lotus is a result of following the involuntary impulses for movement coming from inner guidance. It's not a doingness way of yogic postures, it's a receiving. It's a complete alternative that is much easier, although it will probably take much longer. Now we want to sort of understand the duality of what we're talking about here. And it's not a dichotomy. The dual natures, they don't argue or confront or compete with one another. You could call them the doing way and the non-doing way. Depending on how you define the terms, you could use masculine and feminine, and you could use Osho's way of defining yoga as something that requires will and defining tantra as something that requires surrender. The way I like to refer to them is the difference between moving energy and being moved by energy. Moving energy is willful, it's volitional, it's voluntary. You move energy because you want to. Being moved by energy is non-volitional. It's kind of involuntary. You're moved by beauty, or you're moved by wisdom, or you're moved by any number of things. In fact, when we use the term being moved or I'm moved, what we're really talking about is an internal state of feeling energy of something that moves you. Now, the inner guidance is very much like that. The Mahamudra moves you, and you'll start to see here in many different ways exactly how that takes place. This duality that we're talking about comes down to giving and receiving, comes down to loving and being loved. You know, one of the greatest challenges is to receive the love of others, or to receive the love of the earth or nature. So this duality of giving and receiving, of putting out and letting in, is something that most everyone errs, or let's say is out of balance on one side or the other. And bringing the two together in a perfect merging, knowing exactly when to give, when to receive, is arguably where some of our greatest potential lies. And in this video, we wanted to explore being moved by energy, the part of the duality of receiving, the part of the duality that is, we could say, tantric, the part of the duality that is surrender in nature, and how inner guidance practice fulfills this and opens up the profound alternative of letting Lotus come to you rather than go after it. Now you'll notice also, you can actually see me doing the all of the mudras, the normal hand gestures. They're usually depicted as being static, one particular position. The deities are often pictured as holding one particular position. Well, with inner guidance, with the Mahamudra, they'll all come to you, and they'll come to you in an amazing and beautiful dynamic flow, and they'll come to you accompanying this, what I like to call the Ananda energy, and we'll get into that in much, much greater detail. Now the receiving of the movements from inner guidance, it had allowing expressions of pure love, allowing expressions of making love, allowing expressions of sexual joy. They will also come to you. If you're working with someone in a healing nature, exactly the right movements will come to you for that also. So it's a real fusion of the two, the real fusion of will and surrender, of yoga and tantra, of being moved by energy and moving energy. And then in due course, breathing will come to you also, and you'll have this whole new experience of being breathed. To continue the metaphor or the duality with the breathing, there's you doing your breathing, and then there's your breathing doing you. And more specifically, that's when your body does the breathing. You don't do the breathing, your body does the breathing. And you can see that after a time, the essence of that is a kind of a relaxed, also being moved by inner guidance. The reason it's so vitally important is when you work with the more transcendent life energies like Kundalini and Shen, or Kundalini the snake and Shen the dragon, particularly the dragon energy as it affects the whole body and not just the spinal centers. You have to be able to allow that energy to move you while at the same time guiding it, while at the same time moving with it. Staying in Lotus is very enjoyable. If you think about it, why would the yogis and yoginis want to do it unless they really liked it? Now, what makes the Lotus so enjoyable is the Ananda energy. It's a particular kind of energy. People might call it bliss or ecstasy, or they might have different names for it, but I like to call it the Ananda energy. And it kind of bubbles up from the pelvic floor up through your body and starts to come through your face and your eyes and through your whole body. Now, I was asking a professional yoga teacher once, a great woman, if she used Lotus as part of her private practice. And she said no. And, she listed all of the usual difficulties. And then I was beginning to talk with her, explain to her, share with her a little bit about the inner guidance approach and what it felt like. And she related a nice little story. She said one time she was in a class, she wasn't leading the class, she was in the class, and she got into Lotus and she felt it, the it. And she said, I had the feeling like I could do this all day long. So I know what you're talking about. And so that's exactly the, the difference here. Lotus isn't just a posture, it isn't just a position, it's an energy, and an energy that can be cultivated, an energy that's fostered and furthered by the Mahamudra. Being in the Ananda energy, cultivating it, raising it, that's what it's all about. That's what makes you want to stay in it as long as possible, just because it feels so good. And it leads to so many other different things. Once you're relaxed, settled into Lotus, once you're focused in enough, and the Mahamudra has shown you all the ways you might need to adjust your body to be comfortable and relaxed, and then you start to feel the Ananda energy, start to feel the enjoyment of it. There's basically four ways to extend it, four things you can focus on to keep it going. The first one is the Mahamudra itself, the inner guidance. Um, you basically don't want to stop the inner guidance practice. It will show you how long to stay in it. It will show you when it's time to come out. It will continue with all of the wonderful little hand gestures and movements and finger mudras, moving your body in such a way. It's all designed to keep you in a thoroughly enjoyable and relaxed state so that the Ananda energy just keeps moving through you. Second is the breath, and we're going to talk quite a bit about it. We want to continue with this duality of doing your breathing and letting your breathing do you, and we'll say more about that. The third one is muscle relaxation. Very important. As you are in your lotus and doing your Mahamudra and relaxing your breathing, you'll start to feel muscles that are tight and you'll want to relax them, particularly, of course, hip muscles, leg muscles, um, and you'll just, in a natural way, let go of them. And we'll talk a little bit more about the connection between breath and muscle relaxation and how to do that, continuing in your inner guidance and continuing the process. And the fourth one is mantra. There's some very beautiful ways to use mantra. Um, I usually use it internally, and I make up my own mantras. But you can do many things with mantra. You can actually feel the increase in the Ananda energy, feel um, the support or the assistance or even blessings that might come to you from other sources. Okay, we want to go a little deeper into these different ways of extending the lotus. And the first one is to stay very connected to the Mahamudra itself, to feel the gestures and the mudras in the hands and fingers and arms and in your body as inner guidance just continually keeps you in a flow, and feel how that connects you to the Ananda energy, which again is this joyful life energy. It's a transcendent energy that always has the feeling of sweetness and beauty connected to your inner self. One of the beautiful things about Mahamudra is that as one person is connected to their inner guidance and moving with it, it makes it easier for anybody else around to also make the connection to their inner guidance. This is one of the really wonderful things that comes out of group work when you do this stuff. And filled with surprises, you really can get a sense of the divine choreography going on in the universe. So as you see me moving with this, see if you can feel it yourself. See if you can make the connection to your own inner guidance through your fingers and your hands and arms, and just see if you can make that connection as you watch me. The second one is the breathing. And we'll go even more deeply into this. But the first thing is see if you can let go of your breathing. Let your body do the breathing. Have a sense that the life, you see, when you breathe, you're not just breathing air, you're also breathing energy. And normally you breathe prana or chi, life energy. Well, in this situation, you want to have the idea that you're kind of transferring your body from receiving prana or chi to the more transcendent life energies, like Kundalini and Shen. So you're kind of like gradually allowing your body to receive those energies rather than the normal energies. And we'll go into that further. Third one is specific muscle relaxation. You want to arrive at a place where you can actually feel some of the hip muscles or thigh muscles or muscles in the perineum or in your butt or around your genitals where they actually let go, they actually relax a little bit. Now, one of the key things for that to happen is to slow your breathing. I have a little section a little later on that goes really into detail, but there's this connection between slowing the breathing, gentle eye movements, and muscle relaxation. Might sound a little unusual, but they are all connected, and we'll do a little bit more with that. So as you slow the breathing and try to transfer control of the breathing to your body, have the image that you're now going to breathe more transcendent energies rather than the usual energies, you'll relax even further, even more and more and more and more, go into a relaxed state. And the fourth one is mantra. Now this can be kind of fun. The way you can just invent it, you can use a number of mantras from other places, but I like to create my own. And one of the things that I like to do is to make a connection, not so much to gods, goddesses, and deities, but to the earth and the sun and the galaxy, more in a natural flow. And one of the ways that I do that is by using the name of the earth. And I like to use Sophia because Gaia is kind of the earth as mother. Sophia is kind of the earth as a lover. So the one that I put together, and it goes in a nice 8 count. You want to have it be a nice, relaxed, slow 8 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Om Sachit Ekam Sophia Amrata Ananda Om. Om Sachit Ekam Sophia Amrata Ananda Om. Now, roughly translated, it's kind of like in the name of creation, truth, consciousness, oneness, immortally and ecstatically with the earth. Okay? It's one of the ones that I like the most. I also use Maha Avatar Babaji and Tripura Sundari, because both of them stay, and they're known to stay, in their 16-year-old bodies. And they've been there for, depending on who you read, thousands of years. And what we're working toward in this whole overall system is literally slowing, stopping, and reversing the aging process. And all of the pieces to the system, all of the different tantric meditations, Western meditations, yogic meditations, all combined to put together a system for reducing the aging process. So you can do Om Sat Chit Ekam Tripura Sundari Devi Nama Om. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And make up your own. Make up whatever feels good. And yeah, now all of these will contribute to your relaxation and your sensing and feeling of the Ananda energy. Like I said, that's what it's all about. It's all about feeling great. And when you use the mantras in a nice rhythmic 8 count, then you slow it down. You take the 8 count and have a slower tempo. You can actually start to slow down your breathing that way, and you can slow down your heartbeat that way. You start to bring the whole thing together. Okay, and then the Ananda energy itself, it often begins as just a general feeling good. And then more specifically, you can feel it coming up from the pelvis, sometimes as a wave, sometimes more as a column, sometimes more focused, sometimes more distributed. And it works its way higher and higher. And when it gets to your face, it actually can put a smile on your face. And then it goes higher still for other awarenesses and things like that. So you'd be always in motion with Mahamudra, always relaxing your muscles, slowing your breathing, bringing in your mantras. You can actually feel the difference when you use the mantras in the energy. You just keep putting all that together, staying with Mahamudra, and then inner guidance will tell you when it's time to come out of the lotus. Okay.
When inner guidance feels you've had enough, it may just simply have you wiggle your feet or wiggle your ankles and gently slide out of the lotus. Notice that in general, the movements are slow, gentle, and actually kind of effortless. And as you follow the impulses from within, they should more or less all feel pretty much that way, slow, gentle, and effortless. Now, as you watch these examples of me coming out of lotus, check again, have a little fun, check again if you can feel your own inner guidance giving you involuntary impulses for movement in your own feet, ankles, legs, and so on. And then just continue with Mahamudra for any finishing gestures or any finishing mudras, finishing stretches, and so on. Anything that it may need for you to complete the energy.
There's an aspect of the breath that I don't think is really very well understood, and in my opinion doesn't get enough attention. And that is the possibility of breathing too much or breathing unnecessarily. People seem to be more aware of when they're breathing too little, holding the breath, or breath is really required. But it can be just as problematic to breathe too much as too little. Did you know, for example, that beginning scuba divers use up their air much faster than experienced scuba divers? So that tells you that it's possible to breathe too much or unnecessarily. Also, if you've done any Reichian emotional clearing work, or some of the old style, what do they call it, rebirthing, if you breathe too much, the body tightens and you hyperventilate, and that causes tetany, that causes the tightening of the muscles.
Now, what's lesser understood is that tightening of the muscles, that rigidity, can be much more often, can occur much more often, and can occur in a less intense state. In other words, it's possible to go through your day breathing a little too much and having your body be a little too rigid as a consequence. Now, what's really relevant is that as you slow the breathing, even stop it for a few seconds, even make it more shallow, even bring down the rate. I think the rate is normally 12 to 16. You can bring that all the way down to 2 if you really work at it. But in the beginning stages, it's easy to drop it much lower than that. And the opposite of rigidity, hyperventilation, and tetany occurs. The body relaxes. See, breathing is a charging. Breathing is bringing in energy, prana, chi. And as we just said, you want to start to think about transferring your body's receiving of vital energy over toward Kundalini and Shen in a very gentle, natural way. And as it transfers its receiving of vital energy towards Kundalini and Shen, it will relax because prana and chi tend to charge up the body, um, tend to, and that prana and chi is held in the musculature. So the more you breathe, the tighter the muscles will get. And if you overdo it, you get hyperventilation, tetany, and really rigid um, muscular contractions. Um, so, what this is about is understanding that slowing the breathing, stopping the breathing, making it more shallow, making it less frequent, will have a decided, noticeable relaxation effect on your musculature and therefore on the whole body. Now, one of the fastest ways to relax, one of the fastest ways to chill is to simply drop your breathing as close to zero as possible and gently move your eyes back and forth. You can just try it. Slow the breathing down, gently move the eyes back and forth very gently, and you'll notice everything slows down. Relax. Now, the important part for what we're working on here is we need the muscles of the hips, legs, lower abdomen, lower back, butt, and legs to relax so that when inner guidance, when Mahamudra gives you the impulses to move, that you can actually do them. And what will allow you to do that is the relaxation. And by slowing the breathing, slightly moving the eyes back and forth, the whole body will relax. You can actually feel muscles in the hips, for example, just let go. Or muscles in your lower back, just let go. And then when the impulses come from Mahamudra, you're free to follow them. And you can start to move the legs up and down more easily and more readily. It's a very important aspect of the breath. And it has direct results on this particular facet of what we're working on.
And this is Soul Sister Janie, who's going to share some of her experiences with Mahamudra.
What I got was that this practice is really the practice that helps you connect to this natural intelligence that you have within. It's an intelligence that comes from within, it doesn't come from outside of you. It's impulsive and authentic movement. Sometimes stillness. It really, you when you go into inner guidance and you connect to it and you allow yourself to be moved by it. Um, the this impulse is really coming from within, and how nature has its own intelligence and its own impulse and its own way that it grows naturally and wildly. And this practice connects you to the same thing. It connects you to your natural intelligence. And I first discovered inner guidance practice 16 years ago in a workshop. And I think it was the second time I did it. We did a group inner guidance practice, and I had what I consider to this day an enlightenment experience. Now, the experience was how I define that was really being in an expanded state, being in my joy, being in my naturalness for really the first time in a long time. And it totally blew my mind. And it's what really facilitated me leaving my old life behind, leaving the life that I thought I wanted to really discover the adventure that lay before me. And so this practice is something I can do daily. Anybody can do it. You know, it's simply about setting the intention to connect to inner guidance and then waiting for those impulses to come in. And inner guidance can give you all types of messages and pictures and put your body in positions that just feel so right to give you the perfect stretch. Because I believe that inner guidance, well, I know that inner guidance aligns you to wellness. It moves you, it creates a movement towards truth and wholeness and wellness within yourself.
And this is my soul brother Atmar sharing some of his experiences.
The inner guidance practice, or the Mahamudra, is an amazing opportunity, a tool to connect with your inner essence, with your essence. And by connecting with the Mahamudra to the inner essence, you allow the messages from the essence come into the outer world. So in my experience, for example, I used the Mahamudra a lot for sexual energy. So you go into sexual energy with your Mahamudra, and then you connect with another person, and then you feel the sexual energy. The inner guidance, the essence, leads you into the feeling of the sexual energy. And then, if you can go on, you can use this energy for creativity, like in my case for art, for theater, for comedy. So the Mahamudra is a possibility to allow your essence create energies and to establish energies to create something in the outer world. So the Mahamudra is a possibility for you as a creator to create consciously.
Okay, so that is being in Lotus, staying in Lotus, and coming out of Lotus. So now to the difficult one. Here's the real study, how you actually get into it. As you watch these examples of me, you can also take advantage of a sort of resonance that's available when someone is in their inner guidance practice and see if you can feel your own micro impulses for movement. Now again, primarily Mahamudra is the finding, feeling, and following of involuntary impulses for movement. You find them as they come to you, then you feel into them, and then you follow them and make the movements. Now this is in contrast to normal voluntary impulses and movements. And again, we have the duality of doing and non-doing. Every movement you see here is coming from within. I'm not doing it. It's just coming to me. It's kind of like it's doing me. And you begin this process by closing your eyes and just doing nothing and waiting. You're waiting for the involuntary impulses. Now you want to create the experience that you're just along for the ride, that you're being carried along in this process, and that every movement is a discovery, every movement is a surprise. You really don't have any idea what the next impulse for movement will be. It's very enjoyable. There's nothing to do. You let it come to you. You're along for the ride, discovering movements and on the edge of the unknown. Now when the feeling comes and you follow it, it has a sense of, oh, perfect. And then again, the next impulse comes, you follow it and you go, oh, perfect, felt just right. As you follow it and do it, and then again the feeling of perfect, just the right movement, always on the edge of the unknown, always discovering. Now if you get lost or confused, you simply go back to doing nothing and waiting. You wait for the next involuntary impulse for movement. So if you get like ahead of yourself or feel like it isn't quite right or you're a little off track, just stop and go back to doing nothing and waiting. Now I also have an instruction and practice audio available, and there's a link to that, so that if you have an interest and this process feels right for you, you can begin it. Now going into Lotus is all about allowing inner guidance to take you there. Like I said, you're just along for the ride. The infinite wisdom of inner guidance knows exactly what you need and in what sequence you need it for your body to arrive at that place. You know, all of the saints, mystics, yogis of history, they all tell you the answers are within. Everything is within. Everything is available to you within. Well, this is kind of how you do it, or at least it's one way that you can do it. You just go inside, following these impulses, and the movements come to you. And other things come to you also. And since we know that one of the purposes of Lotus is to bring out the Ananda energy, you and your body have to be available. You have to be in a place of being able to receive that energy. And there can be much personal growth work needing to happen for you and your body to be ready to receive that energy. And we'll go into that another time. We'll go into the personal growth work that's necessary another time. So again, the one-liner takeaway for inner guidance practice is, after doing nothing and waiting, find, feel, and follow. 3 F's. Find, feel, and follow the small micro movements that come to you in the form of involuntary impulses, discovery. And they can be from moving any or all parts of the body. Now, Mahamudra has, on occasion, been naturally discovered by healers, some performers, athletes, and others who work closely with their bodies. And so it's a very natural process. That's the way I encountered it the first time, is as an outgrowth of the deep involuntary emotional clearing work that I was doing with myself and others. So for those of you that I've worked with before, we used to call it the Latihan, which is short for Latihan Kejuan. But Osho felt that the Latihan was just the beginning of Mahamudra, and I kind of agree with him. Plus, in my opinion, the Mahamudra is even less structured than Osho thought it to be. Traditionally, the Latihan was about one's connection to God, and it certainly can be that. Mahamudra, of which the Latihan is, in my opinion, an intrinsic part of, in contrast, has many additional aspects available to it. So the Latihan is one facet or one aspect of the larger Mahamudra. The Mahamudra is much larger in scope than the Latihan, especially when it comes to its interactive forms. In contrast to the Latihan, the interactive forms of Mahamudra come into play for groups working together, partners engaged in healing, individuals or partners engaged in creative work, interacting with a medium like writing, music, etc., like Atmar talked about, and for me, the most enjoyable of all, sexual energy, sharing, and lovemaking as a transformational process. So as you can see from these examples of me, I'm simply waiting and following inner guidance's impulses to move the parts of my body to go into Lotus. I'm not thinking about it, or planning it, or preparing, and so on. The Mahamudra impulses for movement always feel like you have no idea what the next movement will be, and then when you make that next movement, it always feels like, yes, that's exactly right. And in this way, you let the Lotus come to you. And this is how you do it. You may have heard the funny comment that life's too short for tantric sex. Some years ago, I was beginning to make love with this wonderful girl, and I noticed she was kind of going after it a little bit, wanting to make it happen. And her and I had, spent many times previously, slowly moving with the energy of tantric sex. And so I asked her, I said, don't you want to wait for the energy? And she said, you mean the real energy? That takes too long. So, very similarly, when you're working with inner guidance, it can take some time. And you may or may not feel like you have that time. So, there's back to the duality, there's pretty much two ways of doing things, You can go after it or you can let it come to you. Some people like hunting, some people like fishing, some people like going after it, some people like it coming to them. So as you see this video, took 30, 40 minutes for me to get into the Lotus. And inner guidance just had me doing all sorts of things, from even taking a nap to many, many movements and different things with the body until I finally got there. So that's the thing about this approach. It can take some time, but it's always really well worth it.
This is the gratitude section of the video. I really want to say thank you. I really want to say thank you to hundreds of people that I've worked with over the years, going back 35 years, working with people, going back 40 years to the actual seed of what's occurring now, what I have now. The people that have allowed me to really go deep with them, which has always been my intention. I've always wanted to go very deep with people rather than, a broad-based approach. And it's just, it wasn't always easy. Definitely had our share of disagreements, confrontations, and yes, even fights. But all of that is a contribution too, when you're trying to understand people, what empowers them, what gets in the way, and we also had more than our share of profound experiences, what I would call enlightenment or illumination or self-realization experiences. Tons and tons of love, adoration, and great, just wonderful. Working our asses off, trying to understand what really works in terms of empowering people, and all across the board, empowering people, the physical body, the deep healing,
Definitely saved some lives, literally as well as figuratively. Definitely empowered intentions like artistic creativity and abundance, and definitely relationships and love. Made some amazing progress, discoveries, and work on extended, long lasting sexual energy sharing, which for me is the heart of Tantra and the work that goes with that too. Um, all the way over to the Lotus, which we've been talking about, and to slowing the aging process too, which we've totally proven works as well. And we'll get into that and a lot more in other videos. So again, just want to express sincere appreciation, love, gratitude, thanks for all of the hard work, all of the trust for this decades-long research project and laboratory, and like I said, hundreds and hundreds of magnificent people, profound, strong leaders as well. And so, okay, so there's just thanks for all of it.
Okay. Basically, let the lotus come to you. It's about receiving it. It's about receiving it as a gift. It's about allowing and accepting it to come to you rather than going after it in the usual fashion. And as you do that, and you become really grounded in that kind of approach, it literally becomes a metaphor for your whole life. Your whole life comes to you. You know, it can come to you. You can um, be in your inner guidance, and it'll tell you what to do, what to say, when and how. Um, your desires, your breath, your intentions, they'll all come to you. And like I said, it becomes a metaphor for life.
And so, with the whole concept of allowing the lotus to come to you, of receiving the lotus, and then having that be a metaphor for receiving your life, it brings us full circle to the duality of doing and non doing, of giving and receiving, of will and surrender, of yoga and tantra, of moving energy and being moved by energy, and then the most important of all, loving and being loved.